Hey guys, I'm Mario W, and this is my static dots tutorial. We're going to go over the entire category that is static aiming, and we're going to focus on the most common mistakes that I see players making all the time, across all the levels. Now first off, I'm not the best static dots player. That title probably goes to Cartoon or Bardoz. I'm still at the top of the competition, but compared to them, I'm just slightly above average. If you want to see what the pinnacle of static dots looks like, you should watch their VODs on 1-6 targets or 1-4 targets. Speaking specifically about Bardoz, if you have not already watched his static aiming guide, which I have linked in the description, I really recommend you watch it because I will be talking about something called the Bardoz method, which is based on the strategy that he uses to play static dots that he described in his video. Let's start with an overview of static dots. Why is it the category that so many players struggle on, and why should you play it? Well, static dot scenarios, unlike any other aiming category that you will find in Kovacs, because, well, the dots don't move, and in every other scenario type, you'll see bots moving in a certain way. Then players might think to themselves, then what's the point, because in every popular shooter, including tactical shooters, I'm not ruling out those, your opponents are going to be moving. It's more like dynamic clicking if you think about it that way. So, why play static dots if it's not preparing you to face that? Well, static dots doesn't train you like that. It trains your flick accuracy. Flicking, I think, is a skill in and of itself. It takes a lot of time in FPS games to get good at hitting flick shots. And the movements that static dots forces you to perform are basically training you to get used to flicking. Now this leads nicely into my rant about the most common mistake that I see when I watch static VODs from players at the novice to intermediate level of static clicking. It is so detrimental, and I'm willing to bet that it is the only thing keeping your scores down if you suffer from it. So many players, so many, do not know how to flick properly. And let me give a demonstration. This is a 1-1-4 targets run, nothing too special, short demo run, and this score is Astra. What is significant here is how fast my flicks are. Many players often confuse the smooth, straight line concept and they try to be actually smooth in the target to target transition, which is slow compared to genuinely flicking. If you do it properly, it will automatically end up being a straight, smooth line. Now, according to the Bardoz method, your flicks should be fast and your micro corrections should be slow. At least if you're still starting out. The more you play static, the closer your flicks will land to the target, and the faster you'll be able to micro-correct. On the other hand, what I see too many players doing is this. This is a 1-1-4 targets with slow flicking. Way too many of you play static like this. It is wrong. This is not flicking, this is just sauntering your way to each individual target. If you do this, this is the first thing that you have to fix. Learn how to properly flick. It's a healthy medium between jerking your wrist in a certain direction, aping, and plowing your hand through the map like you're slouched in your seat. Some scenarios you could try to practice flicking correctly are reflex flick scenarios, whatever difficulty you like, as long as it's forcing you to flick quickly. Pokeball scenarios are sort of like target switching, and they teach you how to flick without shaking on the landing, which improves accuracy a ton. And finally, 1-1-2 targets, reload, and wide wall 3 targets both force you to make fast movements across wide angles, perfect for learning the skill. If you're flicking correctly, you have the first half of the equation done. Now, the second error that I see all the time, you guys play it as if you have metronomes in your heads, and that's not helping you in static. I recall people used to use metronomes to increase speed in their runs, but it honestly doesn't work forever. If you use a metronome, you're keeping yourself stuck at one specific speed. And if you increase the speed of the metronome, you will end up missing because you feel forced to keep a certain frequency of hits, even on targets that are at far angles. Instead, you have to keep your pacing dynamic. Let me show you what this means from a different perspective. I'm going to bring us into CSGO, and I'm going to cue into a custom map called Aimbots. Yes, this is the old aim training map that all of us CSGO enjoyers played on before we discovered Kovacs. So first thing I'm going to do is shut these 3 walls, and I'm going to keep the farthest spawns closed on this wall. So this setup right here is quite literally horizontal static dots. If you want to add some verticality, you can crouch on this ledge and shoot the bots this here. And I'm also going to turn off Bard armor. So what do I mean when I say to you, keep your pacing dynamic? Basically, when you do static dots, you don't want to be shooting too much to a rhythm. Here's an example. If I equip the Deagle, those of you who know how the Deagle works know that there is a cooldown where you are not accurate when you rapid fire. You have to shoot in a certain interval, much like a metronome. So this would be Deagle shooting. This is what I see too many people doing. Well, this is rather accurate. It's not the best speed you can achieve because guess what? Static dots does not use a weapon that forces you to shoot in intervals like this. Therefore, the pacing is all up to you, which is a good thing when it comes to farming clusters. Now personally, I'm terrible at farming clusters. I can only quickly shoot like 2 to 3 dots in a cluster. But what made me good enough to do it consistently was this. If I equip the M4A1S and you just practice flicking between 2 heads, whenever you see a cluster of 2 more dots, this is what I mean by farming them. If you could get this down, it'll boost your scores miles ahead. Some scenarios to practice are 3 to 5 to 6 sphere hipfire scenarios and trust chain raspberry. Last thing, I wanted to recommend to you an amazing player to base yourself off of when doing statics. This guy is insane. His name is Rupp, he's part of Voltaic, and his statics technique is essentially exactly what the Bardoz method looks like, is supposed to look like. It is perfect. I want you all to notice that there are only 2 movements Rupp is doing every time he goes for another dot. He does the fast flick, and then he does a micro correction. In this VOD, there's not a single wasted movement. This is how you do static dots, and this is what makes it so hard because your movements have to be this clean to hit the best scores. I hope this tutorial has made things a bit easier to understand for you guys. Most common VOD reviews I get are static VODs, and I feel like a lot of the correct information about this category can be abstract, so I tried to give some good examples and comparisons to work off of. Good luck pushing static Astra scores, believe in y'all, happy dot clicking.